Hello, guys. This is Adam Bagley, your instructor. Welcome to week 3 of Accounting 108. We just barely started, so let's see if we can get a student or two here. But while we wait, just a couple of things. Announcements are that this week we'll have basically a repeat as far as format goes of weeks 1 and 2. So what I mean by that is we're going to have a discussion forum that'll have a grade, 60 points. We'll have an assignment, which is a homework assignment, right? That'll be 120 points. Then we'll have a quiz, and the quiz or assessment is going to be worth 50 points. Okay, so you should have an idea, right? Like, at this point, of the difficulty of the assessments, the quizzes. So my recommendation there is to complete your homework and also, in conjunction with that, view the lynda.com instructional videos before you take the assessment. And the reason I recommend that is because the assessment or the quiz will ask very specific questions about QuickBooks. Okay, so you want to be prepared and able to answer those. So as you work with QuickBooks in finishing the homework, right, you'll have kind of the experience, and then if you brush up on your QuickBooks knowledge by continuing to refer to those videos, then you'll have extra knowledge to kind of use on the quiz. Okay, so that is my recommendation on the quiz, on the assessments. All right, so one other note is that more of a reminder, we do have our Student Success Center available. Okay, the learning coaches in here are very familiar with our course assignments. Okay, so they can definitely assist you if you need help one-on-one. They can share your screen. They can walk you through the homework assignment step by step and kind of show you or guide you in QuickBooks. So that's good. They can also assist with putting together your discussion forum, posting, or whatever it is that you need help with. So to get to their schedule, you'll click on Student Success Center open hours. And we're in week 3, so we would refer to this little schedule. And it looks like Monday, they're there from noon to 3, and then from 5 to 8. Today, they're going to be there from 10 a.m. to 2:30, and then from 5 to 11 p.m. Okay, so a little bit of a break in there. But tomorrow, for example, they're open from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Okay. Friday, 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. And then Saturday, 9 to 3, and then from 5 to midnight. Okay. And if you haven't been there or joined on a weekend, you should consider trying to go earlier in the week. They get fairly busy, although it's still a good idea to get help in that method. Okay, waiting for a while to get assistance is better than not getting assistance if that's what you need. And again, they're familiar with our homework. they're familiar with QuickBooks. So I highly recommend using the Student Success Center. All right, and then just a heads up on next week, we're going to have a graded discussion. We'll have our career integration quiz. Okay, that's basically a your feedback type response, not a correct or incorrect. And then it says that we have an assessment. Okay, no assignment, but in practicality, the assessment is very much like a homework assignment. So the benefit there is you'll be familiar with the format, right? You'll follow instructions and end up producing these PDF reports, right, as kind of like your final deliverable, what you'll turn in. So it's kind of called an assessment, but it's really more of a final assignment, final homework assignment. So just to give you a heads up there, we don't have a traditional quiz next week in week 4. All right. Keep doing your daily checkpoints. Those are very important. The checkpoints, especially if you can complete 7 per week, will really help your grade, because the checkpoints that you complete, the 5th, 6th, and 7th ones each week, are going to be extra credit. So 5 points per day, that's 1.5% extra credit on your grade for those 3 additional ones every week. Okay, so very, very handy to have that extra credit. All right. Excuse me. So let's see, what other reminders do we have here? Make sure you are referring to the announcements, but also if you haven't been getting these as messages, maybe your email on file with the course website is not correct. So verify it. Go to your profile. Go to your settings. Oops. Looks like you need to enter your password. And then make sure your email address on file is correct. Okay. All right. So looks like we don't have any students yet, but we will soldier on. So let's take a look at our PowerPoint slides for this week. Okay. So as usual, you guys can contact me at any point in time using any of my contact methods. My email address is adam.bagley@independence.edu. And my phone number is 801-810-7749. Okay, so feel free to text me, feel free to call me, you can email. And I gave this recommendation last week and week 1. But generally speaking, if it's during the day, it might make sense to try email first, because a lot of times I'm caught up with stuff and can't answer the phone, but I could, type out a quick response to an email or a more thoughtful response in due time if that's required. So give it a shot. Try to email me. If not, it's fine to call and text as well. I will definitely return your call. So this morning we will we already took a few pointers on the course. We mentioned that next week will be a slightly different format. We won't have a graded quiz. We also mentioned that it's good to note that you have access to the Student Success Center, and the learning coaches there are familiar with our homework and can really help. So I highly recommend using them. All right, so we'll talk about navigating QuickBooks, the assessment this week, and then no questions at this time because we have no students here, but we'll go ahead and answer questions that pop up for those of you who are watching the recording. So definitely feel free to post those or let me know of your questions there. Okay. So back to our course theme, which is for every minute spent organizing, an hour is earned. Okay, that was Benjamin Franklin. So good old Benny, he gave us this idea, and it's a great one. So as you organize and create efficient systems for yourself, and by that I mean, as you go throughout your daily tasks, thinking about, right, the repetitive nature, right? Every morning we get up, right? Every morning we, put on our clothes, we whatever, take a shower. My point is the same thing happens every day, right? So as we anticipate that, we can, make decisions and make our lives more efficient and organized. Okay. They had an article that I read recently where it said that if you can remove, decision making on some of the small stuff, then your your mind is sort of freed up to focus more on the things that matter, right? So, for example, it mentioned if you've got a morning routine, just doing the same thing every morning can really help because you get into a habit, right? But also you don't have to make a decision like, okay, well, what am I going to have for breakfast today? If you already know, it's going to be, oatmeal and a glass of milk. You just have that ready for yourself. So you don't have to, spend time thinking about it. Anyway, so kind of the same topic, but as we organize our lives and we organize, our work, we earn time in the future. And as we know, there's nothing more valuable than time. So that is the course theme that's driving us to use QuickBooks and learn the computerized accounting system. Learning objectives this week. We're going to demonstrate how to enter and pay a bill. Okay. We're going to create purchase orders, receive inventory, enter a vendor invoice, and issue a check. And then third, differentiate between a sales receipt, a customer invoice, and a customer credit or refund. Now, we do have some knowledge, right, from last week because we went over our little flow chart, right, from the old desktop QuickBooks days. And what we learned there is that a sales receipt and a customer invoice are just two different stages of the order to cash process. OTC, right? Order to cash. And so a customer invoice is what we provide our customers when we have provided services or products, right? And when they have not paid yet, right? That's the invoice. Sales receipt, and our example last year was a grocery store. We get a receipt if we go buy a gallon of milk at the grocery store. And so a sales receipt indicates that payment has already been received, right? So we've done the service or we've sold the product, they've paid it. The only document we're giving them is just a representation of them having paid. Okay. And then a customer credit or refund is pretty self-explanatory. You can record credits or refunds in QuickBooks. So we'll talk about that. All right, so let's take a look here. I wanted to give you kind of a study guide for the quiz. The quizzes are pretty challenging in this class, and it's because they ask very specific questions about QuickBooks and about, where menus are located and how information appears on the screen and how you can sort and how you can, enter data and different things. So it is pretty challenging. And just kind of to return to that topic, I do recommend, as I mentioned before, completing the homework before you take the quiz. And also, as you complete the homework and, perform those different tasks along the way in the homework instructions, you'll also want to refer to the instructional videos on lynda.com as you, go through and complete the tasks and the homework. So it's going to be pretty helpful to refer to this recording, but it'll also be helpful to record or to refer to the recordings made on lynda.com, because those ones are broken out by task, and so you can click on one that just talks about, setting up a new customer, or you can click on one that just talks about, entering a bill. So these things are very specialized, and they'll display in video and audio format just kind of the moving parts, right, to that process. So it'll talk about, what data you need to enter for a bill. It'll talk about once a bill is entered, what does that mean to the system? Is it going to pop up later as due, or what group is it going to be, part of? So these are questions and facts, right, that you get answers to as you complete the homework and as you refer to the instructional videos. And just kind of think of it as, our course textbook, right? We don't really have a physical textbook or even a virtual textbook for this class. But in the place of that, we have these, helpful instructional, video guides. So I think they're quite helpful. All right. So that's my little, comment on the quiz, preparing for the quiz. All right, so let's take a look at the study guide for the week 3 assessment or quiz. All right. So on the pay bills screen, all right, so assuming that you've entered a bill, and we'll talk about that in a minute, that can be pulled up or displayed from the pay bills screen. And let me log in here to QuickBooks, qbo.intuit.com. Let's try this. All right. So if we go over here to expenses, it'll show us our bills. So as we enter bills, well, let's go to the pay bills screen, which you can reach under the vendors menu, and you click on pay bills. It'll show you a list of outstanding items. Okay. Whoops, let's go back down here. So you can see that you can sort by the payee, right? The person or the vendor, the company who you need to pay the money to. There's a reference number field, there's a due date, there's an open balance column, so you can sort by the biggest to the smallest or the smallest to the biggest. There's also other fields that you cannot sort by. For example, credit applied. If you've got some sort of discount, right? You can display more rows if you need to. But these are not really configurable, right? Meaning that, these 4 fields are here, and that's pretty much all you get. So to answer this question, yes, bills can be sorted, but they can be sorted by 4 different fields. They can be sorted by payee, which is kind of like the vendor, right, that we're paying. They can be sorted by reference number. They can be sorted by due date, or they can be sorted by open balance. So those are kind of the 4 ways that we can sort bills. Now, some fields autocomplete when you're entering a bill. So that would be like the payee or the vendor name of this bill. If you start typing in the name, it'll try to auto match it based on what's already in there, already in the system. And I'll let you research what other fields could autocomplete when you're entering a bill. Bills can also be paid from other screens, not just the bills screen or the pay bills screen. Okay. All right, so let's talk about purchase orders. Purchase orders are basically a document that you use to indicate to a vendor that you want to order something. Okay, it's almost like an authorization for them to either send you product or render a service, right? They can't send you really like an invoice, right, until they actually do something for you. And they could send you an estimate, right? But an estimate is still something that you need to make a decision on before they can really do anything for you. So basically, the purchase order kind of serves the role of indicating to the vendor that, yeah, we do want these, these inventory items. Please ship them to us. After which, they can send an invoice, right, for those inventory items that we ordered, because they will have arrived and we will have received them, and then we will owe them the money, right? So POs can be written for accounts, goods, and services, okay? So goods and services is pretty self-explanatory. You can order services just like you can order goods in QuickBooks. And we'll talk about accounts when we go through the assignment instructions. So the third major point here is receiving invoices from vendors, okay? As we receive invoices from vendors, excuse me, we are taking steps to record it into our file, right? So for example, if we receive inventory like we just explained, and then we get an invoice for that, we need to enter the fact that we got the invoice and the data on the invoice. For example, we're being billed $39 for each item that we received, of which there were 8, even though we ordered 9 because only 8 were in stock, right? So we need to make sure that we're entering the data correctly because some circumstances may change, right, down the road after we've made a decision. All right, so QuickBooks also has the ability to send an invoice to a customer through QuickBooks Online. Okay, so it'll just like email them from the system and it will have some information in it. It's kind of surprising. It doesn't look like an invoice. It has an amount. It says invoice. It has an amount and it has like the company name, but it doesn't have a lot of the traditional stuff. and it doesn't send them like a PDF copy of the invoice that we have been working on, which is kind of frustrating. You'd think they would have like a better capability there, but they don't. So it's a very basic like email message with some information in it, but not complete, not similar to an invoice. So they call it an invoice, but it's really more like a message, and those can be sent out directly from the system, which is pretty handy, right? Because you know, you should have emails for each of your customers. If you don't, that's fine. But if you do, you can send them invoices through the system. It'll send them a little message. They'll receive it in their email inbox, and then if you've got your, merchant account set up or whatever, they can also click on it and pay it with their card. So pretty cool. That's a good feature. Definitely useful to have, but as I mentioned, not like ideal. So, all right, and then sales tax, well, more specifically, returns. So returns, meaning customer returns, are when inventory comes back into our possession, okay? So at that point, obviously we, the inventory account will increase, the cash account will decrease, right? So it's kind of a reverse of the normal process of selling. And likewise, any sales tax that we collected on that sale will also be returned, okay? Because we collected it from the customer, so it can be given back. So imagine like, we sold something for $10 and the sales tax was $1. So we collected 11. 10 of it was for our revenue. $1 of it was for sales tax, and we owe that to the state, right? That's kind of how it works. So we send that off to the state. But if we have a return for this particular item, we give them $11 back, right? Because we collected 11 total. And the state just doesn't get that $1, right? Because really the sale was reversed. It was a return. So that's how it works. All right, so let's take a look at the week 3. Well, let's go to reading tools first so that we can take a look at what we've got as far as a summary information. All right. Now the playlist is listed here, but to get to it, you'll want to use the week 3 group of modules, okay? So for example, the way that you would get to it is by clicking on the portal link, and then it'll ask you, hey, it's going to be loaded in a new browser window. And then week 3 should be selected, but if not, you'll just click over here on the left-hand side, week 3, and then select the course. And then you'll have 3 sections of videos here. Paying for expenses, invoicing, and then receiving payments. Okay. So clicking on each item will take you to that video. Now again, these are very useful videos because they describe and kind of note along the way which areas of the system to click on. And they kind of go through and explain, what they're doing, the menu items, how this will be recorded in QuickBooks, and so forth. The other cool thing is, as you go through, you'll see that it'll highlight. You can see kind of in faint blue, at least hopefully you can see that, as they go through the presentation. So you have a transcript to read as well. The other cool thing is if you highlight a sentence of the transcript and you click on it, it'll skip back to that particular moment in the video. So if you're if you're scrolling through and you decide, hey, look, I want to learn about sending an email, you can click on that. It'll skip to that portion of the video, and then you can decide, hey, this is the information I need, or I can keep looking. Okay. If you don't see the videos from this screen initially, you can easily search for the search for the course by typing in QuickBooks, and you can scroll down once you've done the search. I think it's actually better to type in QuickBooks Online. There we go. So there's only one result, and basically what you'll do is you'll click on the course title, and it'll load it in a different view, slightly different, but you'll be able to cruise through the topics on the left-hand side within this embedded menu and choose the video that you want to see. Okay. All right, so again, these are very useful videos in completing the tasks for the assignment, okay, and also preparing for the quiz. All right, so those are the videos linked or mentioned at least in here in the Reading and Tools page. We've also got a description of the discussion and the assignment as well. So let's go to the assignment page. I will zoom in here so you can see more clearly. So what I'll do is I'll add some bills so that we can see what that screen looks like. A bill. Now, bills are items that are associated with a vendor record. So if we have a vendor in here that we've already entered, so for example, if you'll recall, we imported, right, a list of our vendors last week. So they need to have a term, which is when they expect to be paid. In this case, net 30 means they'll be paid 30 days or within 30 days from the invoice date or the bill date. So it kind of calculates it automatically for you. If they have given it to us today and it was dated today, then it'll be due on September 21st. But a lot of times what happens is they'll, when we get it, when we become aware of it, it's been at least a few days because it takes time to come through the mail if it hasn't been emailed. So the due date could be sooner than that. All right, not specifically 30 days. All right, so the bill will basically represent that we have received a product or service that we still owe someone for. Okay, so for example, if this is land management, it might be that they performed landscaping services. Landscaping expense. Whoops, spell that correctly. and its expense type will be more of a general type expense. What we'll say is landscaping for August 2017, and then it was $129. This billable little checkbox will allow us to forward this charge or use it in creating a customer invoice. Okay, so if this is an item that we could bill to a customer, then we will bill it to a customer, but this is not one of those things. So then what we'll do is we'll save and we'll start a new one. Now this one could be a parts order, right? So it could be warehouse parts depot. Let's say their terms are due within 15 days, so net 15. Now this one's going to be an inventory item, and we'll say this is, well, we have to actually enter inventory on a different screen, so we'll not do that right now. But let's say this one is something very basic like utility. Oops. Utilities. Power bill, August 2017. Okay. It's not going to be billable, of course. We'll save and close. So we've got two open bills here. If we go to the pay bills screen, which is kind of a pop-down, it's not really like a actual page within QuickBooks. It's more like a menu. We can sort by the payee. We can sort by the due date. If we want to pay the ones that are due the soonest, if we want to pay those first, we could do that. We could sort by the biggest or the smallest. And then as we enter in amounts we want to pay from this screen, what it'll do is it will create checks for these. So let's say we want to get current and we want to pay all of ours. Now it's calculating our bank account balance. So we'll have to go, record that we have more money in there. So we'll save that. Choosing a bank account. Gold status checking. Okay. Let's see that the balance was $2,500 as of 8/22. That'll allow us to pay our bills. All right. So we will save and print those checks. When we're paying our bill, it'll assume that we want to print out some checks. Now, this is a pretty standard, procedure for most businesses, and you'd be surprised, how common it is to use paper checks still to pay bills. And the reason for that is that checks have a great system in place. And so what I mean by that is the check system is based on authorization. It's based on a established system for processing payments, right? You can send pretty much anyone a check. It's not like, oh, hey, do you have a PayPal account? Oh, you don't? Okay, let's figure something out. You can give anyone a check and it'll be pretty much as good as cash. The other factors that really help out are that banks are set up to handle checks really well. they keep check images, right, of these checks, both deposited into the receiver's account, but also issued from the owner or the account owner's account, right? So you can pull up check images at a later date to kind of refer to if you need to. That's extremely useful. They also have authorization procedures on checks, right? Things that they don't usually check on for maybe electronic transfers. Does the signature match? Is it authorized from the account? Meaning some accounts have a security feature, right? Where if the check number and the amount matches the record provided by the account owner, then they'll let it through. If it doesn't, they'll flag it, and the owner of the checking account will have to come in and say yes or no on individual checks. Okay, so there's all sorts of really good sort of fraud prevention and error prevention systems in place. So pretty fascinating. So as I mentioned, it is super common to see checks issued still today. Okay, so we can use standard checks, which is that there's multiple checks per page. And we'll choose the ones we want to pay. And then we'll preview that. Since it's expecting pre-printed and pre-numbered check paper, we have to provide the starting check number. So we'll say it's 1,000, and we'll print those out. So you can see that as we enter that in, it takes a standard check format, right? Puts the date in the top right. We have the payee, in other words, the person being paid, the amount, the written out amount, and then the name and address for the check, right? Because if we use a windowed envelope, we can just have this like show up through the window, and then it will not require additional stamping, or should I say additional labeling. It'll still be need to be stamped. So we'll print those out. We'll save it to PDF. Checks for bill pay. And then we'll close this, and then we'll say that they printed correctly. If we choose yes, it will consider these as having been paid, okay? If not, it'll keep them in this little pay bills screen, okay? Or should I say print checks screen. So we'll say, yeah, they did print out. We're gonna mail them. QuickBooks will consider this to be paid. So we can see it from the expense transactions sheet, or we can go to the pay bills screen, and you can see there's none here anymore. Those two got paid, and so those ones are completed. All right. So that's kind of how bills work in QuickBooks. Purchase order. Well, let's take a look at what you're going to need for this week here. A little too far. Okay, there we go. So we're going to need 4 reports to turn in this week. The first one being a vendor's report. Okay, so this will kind of indicate how many of the vendor transactions you have recorded. So hopefully that's all of them, right? That is the first step. Let's take a look here. So once you have entered in these 3 bills, the information should sync up with what's on the vendor's screen. Okay, so you've got Taylor's Towing, that's from last week. Standard Fuels and Oil, that's from this week. Spratazon Wireless, that's from this week. And then Warehouse Parts Depot. Okay. County Electric, Land Management Company, and Sprat is on wireless. Okay. So what you'll do is you can see that the land management company one is 0, meaning that along the way, we are going to issue payment for some of the bills. Okay, so that's step 5. So we just completed this step in kind of explaining how the process of paying bills works. We talked about how we're going to print checks, the style of the check page, the need for a check number, right, to start. And then as we print them, QuickBooks will assume that we're going to mail it off and that that has been paid. So that is how they get from being a bill entered in the system and a bill that would appear in the pay bills screen to one that has a balance of 0. So you can see that County Electric has a balance of 0 and Land Management Company has a balance of 0. Okay, because we've issued checks to those two. All right, so that's the first report, vendors.pdf. And the way you can save that is you would go to this vendors page here, and you would take a screenshot. And once your bills are entered in, and you've paid a couple of them, those balances will appear here in your vendors list. And if I recall correctly, I think there's a quiz question on this particular screen, the vendors screen. So it'll probably ask, like, you know, what information is available on the vendors screen, or maybe it'll ask a more specific question, like, you know, how do you sort by unpaid or paid, open or overdue, that kind of stuff. Okay. All right. So that is the first one, and that'll be a screenshot just because I don't think there's a way to print out that screen per se. I guess we could try. Yeah, so if you hit the print icon, you can print out a PDF of that screen, which is great. You can definitely turn that in as well. Or you can take a screenshot of the actual page itself. So I will leave that up to you guys. But either way is fine. All right, so that was vendors. The second report that we need to complete is products and services. Okay, so you can see here that we've got under the lists menu, we've got a products and services page, basically showing our inventory, but also including non-inventory items like discount account and our sales tax account. So let's take a look at that here. We'll go over to lists from the gear icon, and then we'll go to products and services. All right. So if we have a new one, and it's inventory, so we'll say that we've got oil filters, and this is going to be auto parts. Let's say we have 50 on hand, as of today. Save that and close it. Let's add one more. This will be another service. We'll call this transmission flush. Right, transmission fluid flush. Now the category is going to be auto services, right? Because it's not a part that we're selling. So as we, make an invoice to a customer, we can choose that from our product or service. So if we type in trans, it'll come up as a service we can offer, and we can just type in what we're charging for it, and then we need to enter a customer, and then we're good to go. All right. So there's a short tour of our little, parts, products and services, inventory items. Those, I believe, should have been entered last week, so they should already be there, because we don't really have, yeah. That was part of our assignment last week, was to enter those parts and services. Okay. Now you see here that we have a sales price and a cost and then a quantity. So be sure to enter that information as it appears in the instructions. And again, this is going back to week 2. Verify that that information is correct, because as you enter the products for sales transactions, as we sell them to customers, QuickBooks will use the sales price that you entered in when you set it up. It'll also use the cost that you entered in to determine, what the profit was on each of those. Okay, so same story. We're going to go ahead and save that screen, products and services. We can either click on the print icon, or we can take a screenshot of that screen. Alrighty. So that's the second report that we need. First one's vendors, second one's products and services, and the third one is going to be customers. Okay. Now, after completing the instructions, you'll have some new transactions in your customer's screen. But the customer screen is basically a function of invoices that you've recorded for customers, and also payments that you've received from customers. Okay, that'll drive the balance per customer up and down. So as we bill our customers, their open balance will increase, right? And some customers have more than one outstanding item. That's pretty normal. As we collect on them, though, as we receive payments from our customers, those open balances will go down, right? So managing that amount and that process is pretty challenging in a business. So keep that in mind. It's definitely a process. Okay, so we'll go to the customers page, which again is under sales. That's got our invoices, our customers, and then the listing of our products and services. Okay. So you can see from this screen, we can create an invoice, or we can just add an invoice from the Create menu. But this will show our open and outstanding items as well. And we can print that screen just like the other one. All right, let's take a look at, the fourth report that you need to turn in with the week 3 homework, and that is the sales transactions report. So before we look at this one, let's record a couple sales transactions. So we will do a new invoice here. So from the drop down, we'll choose hours. So we'll just put labor hours, fixing Mr. Robertson's auto. And we'll say, look, we spent 2.45 hours. Our billing rate is, for this particular, technician, perhaps it was $65 per hour. So your labor or hours on this particular job came out to a dollar amount of $159.25. Okay. So we'll save that. Let's record one more, and then we'll pay one of them. Or should I say, record that we are being paid on one of them. Okay, this one will be a product. Charging him $15.99 for the filter. And then since it's a oil service, we'll say, hey, it took us half an hour. The billing rate is 65, so it was $32.50 for that time, right? We'll also sell you this oil filter for your car as part of that for $16, or should I say $15.99. So your total for the oil change is going to be $48.49. It's actually not a bad price. It's pretty realistic. All right. So we go to the sales screen and run the sales transactions report. Sales, all sales. So I think, let's see here. Sometimes these screenshots change a little bit. For example, you can see the menu's different as well. So I'm pretty sure this is just showing unbilled, billed, unpaid, and paid. And then status. Yeah, that's got to be it. So we got a status on each one. So you can see this one's been marked as paid. We received money from that. We've got 3 open ones. And then in our screenshot, we've got one that's overdue. Okay, so that was the Independent School District number 3 one. And just as a side note, guys, as you're going through and you're entering dates, especially as it refers to the instructions here, don't don't feel like you need to enter in these exact dates, because if you do, QuickBooks will get a little weird. And the reason I say that is because All right, guys, back. I do swap my battery again. Seems like that happens every single time. Not sure why that is. Okay, so what I was saying was I recommend that you don't use the dates in the instructions, because if you do, QuickBooks will assume, like you're paying checks, almost, 18 months ago. You're entering invoices from vendors that were, received like 18 months ago, and it'll bring up some errors. Not errors like we can't do this, but like errors like, hey, you have all this overdue stuff. So it would make sense to use a recent date for all of these things. So just pick a date, this month in August, and you'll be fine. Okay, so keep that in mind as you go through. That's it for the instructions. Just those 4 reports that we just talked about: sales transactions, customers, products and services, and vendors. So those 4 items you'll turn in, and do make sure that they match the amounts and stuff, so that you can verify that you've completed each step in the instructions for the homework. All right, so that's really all we had to cover. We don't have any questions because there's no students here, but if you are watching the recording and you've got questions, let me know. Happy to chat, call, text, email, whatever your method is that you prefer. Okay. Have a good week this week, guys, and let me know what you need. Okay, bye-bye.